Welcome ladies and gentlemen to a new video on the channel. Today's video is going to be on our beloved team, the Seven. As we know, they're going to be returning in chapter 7, so I thought let's make a video on them and why, in my opinion, they are the root of all evil and have caused everything that has happened so far, and them returning is actually going to bring more devastation, just death and chaos to the island. Now, if you know the Seven, you're probably scratching your head saying, but aren't they heroes? They're heroes who made all the wrong choices. They essentially did one thing that has spiraled off and caused our downfall, and those effects are still lingering with us today. So, let's begin. The Seven were introduced technically in Chapter 1, with the first member of it being the Visitor, who crash-landed on Chapter 1 in a meteorite, who then used a rocket to rift into the sky that brought a cube here. Now, already one of the members of the Seven have already caused a world-ending threat to arrive on the island, and did nothing about it. And then we see this again. But this time a Seven member shows up, they actually try and help. Or do they? The Paradigm decides who has been captured by the IO, who, in my opinion, although they're not good people by any standards, they were doing what was right for the universe. I'll explain that in a minute. But they capture the Paradigm for obvious reasons. She's working with the Seven, and, well, they just wanted to take her prisoner. They give her she gives them an ultimatum. You build me a mech, and I defeat the monster that's coming from the Ice King that had fallen off from the moon, and was going to destroy the island. So Paradigm gets in a mech and fights it. And what does the Paradigm do? Pulls out the 0 point to beat it, and then what does she do? Leave it exposed so it can get destabilized and start destroying the island. This then causes her to leave, and the Seven find her as a traitor, which honestly, yeah, I would too. She left a 0 point unstable and nearly caused the end of the island. That's when the scientist arrives on the island, and although he technically saves us, he also doesn't at the same time. You see, his plan is to bring all the Seven together to jumpstart the 0 point and reset the universe. Or just jumpstart the 0 point so it can recreate the island, which it does. After the Big Bang, we are thrown into Chapter 2, where we don't actually see any Seven members till Chapter 2, Season 6, where they're mentioned. Jones has been requested to go into the loop after Galactus pulled the 0 point out of the middle of the island, and has now left it exposed again. So Jones goes into the loop in order to fix it, and well, he needs to protect it from people who would like to escape the loop. And what does the IO do? Yeah, they don't really do anything. They don't really seem to care, which is pretty weird, because you'd think the IO who want this thing back in their control. But then you read the Batman comics and you realise this was all part of a greater plan. The IO aren't bothered about the island being destroyed, they just don't want others to gain control of the 0 point, because if they need to, they'll just go get it themselves. They won't fix it, they'll just let the 0 point implode and it'll fix itself, and then they'll just recapture it again, like they've probably done before. But the Seven are mentioned, and Jones brings the Foundation to the island in order to fix it. And what does the Foundation immediately do? He punches Jones in the face and kicks him into a rock. Now, yes, Jones is considered a villain in his eyes, but our first interaction to the leader of the Seven is him attacking our hero. Now, at this point, Jones has left the Order and has decided he wants to save the 0 point, which is very noble of him. This is when he starts to become a hero. And what does our leader of the hero faction do immediately after seeing him? Immediately curve stomp him into the ground, and only starts to help him if Jones gives up something like his leader and the sisters, which to this day I don't know if he needed that information. Weren't the sisters already part of the Seven? I don't really know. Fortnite never explained it themselves, but point is, yeah, the Foundation seals inside the 0 point, and yeah, the 0 point can heal itself. And then eventually the last realities show up and they destroy the Spire. And I assume try and take the 0 point as they're invading the island, and then obviously we go on to the ship, blow it up from the inside, cubes rain on the island, and the Cube Queen invades, and then flips the island after the 7 come in and rescue us. Also in the Batman comics, we know that the IO tricks the Batman into basically setting the point 0 point free itself so they can regain control of it. And then obviously we move into chapter 3, where the 7 are properly introduced as our hero faction. We see them as they flip the island onto chapter 3, and we work with them against the IO, who are going to invade. During the IO war, we find out a fraction of the shard has been taken to the Marvel universe, where Wakandans have it, and then obviously 2 separate teams go get it. I don't really want to explain the entire lore of the 7, because there's comic books about it, there's multiple videos about it. I just want to explain how we got here. So after we do all that, the war begins, we defeat them, and then the most important thing happens in the entire Zero War. Jones and Foundation jump into the 0 point and confront Geno, who tells them it's their turn to look after the 0 point, and if they don't protect it properly, bad things are going to happen. And what happens immediately after the last reality takes notice and invades the island, immediately kills half the members of the 7, corrupting them and sending the island into chaos, which then has the Paradigm, who has been rescued by the 7 and reformed into one of their members again, has to do Zero Fusion because the last reality destroyed the entire island in an attempt to steal the 0 point. And yeah, this all happened within a few months of Jenna's warning. You can see why I'm a bit hesitant to call these guys heroes. Obviously they couldn't predict that the last reality would do this, but within 1 month or 2, the 0 point immediately falls into the hands of evil, because the last reality invade and all of them immediately get smoked. Which, to be perfectly honest, is just hilarious. These guys are meant to be our protectors and they immediately get taken out. Like, it is quite funny. But Zero Fusion happens, the islands are reformed, we're told about the last reality getting corrupted. Sorry, not the last reality, these 7 are getting corrupted by the last reality, and yeah. And then we never hear about them from again, because chapter 4 decided that its storyline didn't want to make sense, and yeah. Then we move on to chapter 5. Yeah, none of the 7 are really mentioned there. Just not really anything to do with the 0 point except for Pandora's box. And then we get on to chapter 6, where we see the OG mode has introduced the visitor again, who has his memories, who is supposedly escaped the Chrome, or is here because time has dragged him from wherever he was in order to set the timeline straight. And so yeah, and now we're getting teasers that the whole 7 are returning, and everyone's now celebrating. Let me make this very clear. I fully believe that when the 7 return, it's not because they're returning to their good guy forms. These are going to be corrupted 7 members. Because we know the visitor was dragged from wherever he was in reality to the OG island, and we know that a few members have been accounted for, such as the scientist and the origin. They have not been dragged to the island, but then again, the time travel whole plot could have just ended that, so it's a good chance that the 7 could return. There are 2 scenarios here. One scenario is that the time travel plot convenience retcon basically reset all of time, and so the 7 were never captured by the last reality, they never were chromed. Or the other timeline is that they have all been chromed, and some members were able to escape due to the time warp, which happened in the Big Bang, and we'll slowly see all the members return one by one, and with the visitors and possibly the scientists' help, we free the other members in chapter 7. But let's talk about how this is still bad for the island. If they were to return, I do believe some of the members will still be corrupted. I don't believe we're just going to get all of them back, all happy and good, because the last time we saw them, they were all corrupted, so it would be weird to just see them all back to normal. So I believe when they return, it will be because the last reality has sent them to find either a Zero Shard or take over the map. We don't know how we're getting to the Chapter 7 island, and we don't know what's going to happen to the Zero Shard. There's a lot of unknown plot points and factors being played into here, so we just have to go on a whim here and just speculate. I believe that Dark Presence will win. I believe the Dark Presence is part of the last reality, which would make sense considering the bugs, the demons, the Dark Presence himself. It would just make sense. So I assume that in the live event we're coming up against near the end of the Simpsons seasons, it's going to be a massive fight against the Dark Presence. It's possible we lose and have to retreat to another island, and we find out there's a Zero Shard there. Or, what if we have to escape the island and the last reality chases us to this island, sending the Seven as their enforcers, like an execution squad or special forces. Perhaps the Seven have been moulded into this elite team of fighters for the last reality, and they send them after us, as, you know, we are trying to stop them. So maybe that's why we're running, as the Dark Presence has sent them after us. Now let's talk about Geno. Geno was the leader of the IO, and in all cases probably the smartest one out of all of them. He knew what the 0 point needed and how to protect it. In some cases, I think in a sad way and funny way, he knew what was going to happen the minute the 0 point falls into the hands of people who don't understand its power. He knew that the second the 0 point becomes unguarded, the last reality was going to show up, which is why he just accepted it. He just wanted to prove to the Seven that he was a better protector than them, and to be fair, he's proven that very well, because ever since then, everything in life has gone spiraling down because of the Seven's ability or inability not to listen to him. What Geno was doing was wrong by all cases. What he was doing was horrible. Kidnapping people, torturing them, using them for information. But he also was just running an organisation that was bent on his whim. But I do believe that some of the IO members were just doing their own thing. I generally believe that Geno was just studying the 0 point to create his perfect reality. He wasn't doing it by good standards, but he was still trying to perfect things. So there must be some good in him, because in order to have a perfect universe, you have to have some good qualities. But then again, you're a villain, so you don't really have to have any qualities. So yeah, Geno was right about the Seven, but wrong in what he was doing. And you bring those two factors together, and it really makes for an interesting villain. He knew that he was the only one who could protect the 0 point. If you notice in the when the last reality first invade, the IO don't seem to do anything, probably because Geno said there was no need. They were more focused on Jones than the actual invasion going on, because if something were to get worse, I'm sure Geno would have gone up there himself and dealt with the last reality. But since he didn't see them as too much of a threat at the time, he probably didn't care. He was more focused on them getting the 0 point. If they had tried to go after the 0 point, I believe he would have stepped in. But he didn't, so he probably didn't see it as necessary. So Geno is good and bad for qualities and not good qualities. He's a mix of both. But yeah, so in some cases, I do believe that. Now, let me make this perfectly clear. I don't think the Seven intentionally did what they did. It's more of a matter of they accidentally did it. I'm not calling all of them evil. I'm more calling the Foundation reckless and unwilling to let go of his ego, because he genuinely believed he knew what was better for the 0 point than the man who's been studying it for thousands of years. And so to give him one last middle finger, Geno said, okay, you can take care of it, but be aware that if you don't, bad things were going to happen. And 3 years later, we're still looking at the results of him not listening to Geno. In a way, they're kind of a yin and yang, Foundation and Geno. Both right, both wrong. No side is both good or evil. They both do what they believe is right, and they both use methods that are not, well, correct. But the rest of the Seven are just following orders, just like the IO are following orders. But yeah, I generally believe, I am happy that the Seven are returning. I just hope the Seven, when they do return, they return properly and it's not rushed and not forced, because I love the Seven. Like, I don't It's not I don't like the Seven. I genuinely, they're great characters. They are great for the old storyline. When I say old, but current storyline, as it's one big continuous storyline. But yeah, I can't wait to see what Fortnite has planned for these guys. I hope they bring back Geno. I hope they bring back the IO. I hope they bring back these missing qualities and give us more information on them. You know, just give us some more storyline on them, because Chapter 2, 3, and 1 didn't really give us much on their story. Like, it would also be cool if Hope and Jones officially joined the 7, because, to be honest, Hope in a 7 suit would look really good, and Jones finally getting his Legend title would be really cool and really, really good to see after all these years. I don't know which members would return. I'm really hoping the Imagined returns. She's one of my favourite. But other than that, I can't wait to see what Fortnite does in the future. Well, once again, these have all just been my thoughts and theories. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.